Men, the most dangerous thing about cheating isn't just the betrayal. It's how she'll try to make you responsible for it. Many women don't confess with guilt and remorse. They confess with accusations and justifications that somehow make their infidelity your fault. Instead of taking responsibility for their choices, they twist the narrative so that you become the reason they cheated, your failures become their justification, and your inadequacy becomes their excuse. And here's the worst part. If you don't recognize these tricks for what they are, you might actually start believing her version, where you're to blame for her betrayal. Today, we're breaking down 6 psychological tricks women use to turn their cheating into your fault. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and hit the hype by dropping a comment if you've ever been blamed for someone else's cheating and later realize the manipulation. Your recognition might help another man see through the blame shifting before he accepts responsibility that isn't his. Trick 1. You neglected me. The emotional abandonment narrative. This trick involves her framing the cheating as an inevitable response to your alleged emotional neglect. Instead of admitting she made a choice, she claims she felt lonely, emotionally abandoned, or invisible in the relationship. Your supposed failure to meet her emotional needs becomes the cause of her infidelity, transforming her deliberate betrayal into your fault for not providing enough attention, affection, or emotional connection. The trick works because relationships do require emotional investment, and most people recognize they could have done more in some areas. By focusing on your imperfections as a partner, moments you were distracted, stressed, or less attentive, she constructs narrative where those normal human limitations caused her cheating. She's not the betrayer, she's the neglected victim who made understandable mistake in seeking elsewhere what you failed to provide. Notice how she frames the conversation about the affair. Does she take any responsibility for choosing to cheat, or does the conversation immediately become about your failures as a partner? If discussion of her infidelity quickly becomes discussion of your inadequacy, she's successfully redirecting focus from her choice to your alleged deficiency. Pay attention to whether she acknowledges she had other options besides cheating. Could she have communicated her needs more clearly? Could she have suggested counseling? Could she have addressed the problems directly with you? Could she have left the relationship before betraying it? If she doesn't acknowledge these alternatives, she's pretending cheating was her only option when it was actually just the option she chose. Watch whether the neglect she describes was genuine severe deprivation or normal relationship imperfection. Was she truly emotionally abandoned, or did you have a busy work period? Was she genuinely invisible, or did you have temporary stress affecting your attention? The difference between severe neglect and normal life fluctuations matters, but she'll frame normal imperfection as severe neglect to justify her choice. Listen to whether she's claiming you caused her affair, or whether she acknowledges that while you could have been a better partner, she chose how to respond to that imperfection. Causation versus correlation matters enormously. Your inattention might have made her unhappy, but it didn't make her cheat. She chose to cheat rather than choosing any of the ethical alternatives available to unhappy partners. Notice whether she's describing patterns that existed before the affair, or whether she's retroactively reinterpreting the relationship through lens of justification. Many women rewrite relationship history after cheating, claiming they were neglected all along, when in reality, the relationship had normal ups and downs. This revisionist history serves her justification narrative. Check whether she's holding you to standards she met herself. Was she equally attentive to your emotional needs? Did she invest equivalent emotional energy in the relationship? Or is she claiming you neglected her while she was equally or more neglectful of you? Asymmetrical standards reveal the neglect narrative is manipulation, not accurate assessment. Watch whether she expresses genuine remorse for betraying you, or whether her primary emotion is resentment about the neglect she's claiming justified the betrayal. If she's more focused on your failures than on her choice to respond to those failures through betrayal, she's not actually taking accountability. Listen to whether she's willing to discuss the cheating itself, or whether every attempt to address the betrayal gets redirected to discussions of your inadequacy. If you can't discuss her affair without the conversation becoming about your neglect, she's using the neglect narrative as shield against accountability for infidelity. The psychological mechanism is reversing perpetrator and victim by reframing chronology. You were imperfect partner. She cheated. You discovered the cheating. But she starts the story earlier. You neglected her. She sought connection elsewhere. You're upset about the natural consequence of your neglect. By choosing where the story begins, she makes herself the victim responding to your failure rather than the perpetrator who betrayed your trust. The long-term impact is accepting responsibility for her cheating on top of whatever actual relationship imperfections you had. You believe you drove her to it through your inadequacy. You carry guilt for her affair. You work to prove you'll never neglect her again while she faces minimal consequences for choosing to betray you. The neglect narrative ensures you're always the problem that caused her to cheat rather than her being the person who chose to cheat, regardless of relationship challenges. Trick 2. I tried to talk to you, but you never listened. The failed communication defense. This trick involves claiming she attempted to address relationship problems repeatedly, but you ignored her, dismissed her concerns, or failed to take them seriously. So what else was she supposed to do but cheat? The failed communication defense positions her affair as last resort after exhausting all legitimate attempts to fix the relationship through talking to you, which makes you responsible for creating a situation where cheating seemed like her only option. The trick works because communication is fundamental to healthy relationships, and most people acknowledge they could communicate better. By claiming she tried to tell you what she needed, and you didn't listen, she makes your communication failures the cause of her infidelity. She's not someone who betrayed you. She's someone who exhausted all proper channels before reluctantly seeking connection elsewhere because you left her no choice. Notice whether her claims about trying to communicate match your memory of the relationship. Did she clearly, explicitly, seriously communicate that relationship was in crisis-level trouble, or did she make vague complaints that you addressed as best you could? There's enormous difference between "I felt disconnected lately" and "Our relationship is in such serious trouble, I'm considering leaving or cheating." If she never escalated to communicating the severity clearly, her claim that you didn't listen is dishonest. Pay attention to whether she's claiming you should have read between the lines and understood severity from subtle cues. Is she suggesting you should have intuited crisis from minor complaints? This expectation of mind reading is unreasonable. If the situation was serious enough to justify affairs according to her logic, it was serious enough to communicate with unmistakable clarity. Watch whether she provides specific examples of serious conversations you dismissed, or whether the claim remains vague. Can she point to specific times she clearly expressed crisis-level concerns that you ignored? Or is it general claim that she tried to tell you without specifics? Vague claims are often fabricated because specific examples would reveal she never actually communicated as seriously as she's now claiming. Listen to whether she acknowledges that communication is two-way responsibility. Did she communicate clearly and directly, or did she expect you to intuit her needs from passive-aggressive hints or vague dissatisfaction? If she wasn't direct about her needs, she can't claim you failed to listen to what was never clearly communicated. Notice whether she's holding herself to the same communication standards she's applying to you. Did she listen when you expressed needs or concerns? Did she take your communication seriously? Or is she claiming you failed at communication she equally or more significantly failed at? Double standards reveal manipulation. Check the timeline of when these alleged communication attempts happened relative to when the affair began. Did she try to communicate for months before cheating? Or did the affair begin quickly, after meeting someone new, with the "I tried to tell you" narrative appearing only after being caught? If the affair started immediately, the failed communication narrative is retroactive justification. Watch whether she ever suggested concrete interventions like counseling, scheduled conversations about relationship health, or structured attempts to address problems. If she never suggested professional help or formal problem-solving, her claim that she exhausted all options before cheating is false. Listen to whether she acknowledges that even if communication failed, cheating wasn't the appropriate next step. Did she consider other options like separation or ending the relationship before betraying it? If she jumped straight to infidelity without exhausting ethical alternatives, communication failure doesn't justify her choice. The psychological mechanism is making your alleged failure to hear her serious concerns the cause of her cheating, which transfers responsibility from her choice to your inadequacy. By claiming she told you what she needed and you didn't listen, she positions herself as someone who tried to fix things properly but was forced into affair by your communication failure. The long-term impact is doubting your own perception and accepting blame for not hearing warnings that were either never given or never communicated with the urgency and clarity she's now claiming. You believe you failed to listen, which caused her to cheat, which makes her betrayal your fault. Meanwhile, she escapes accountability for choosing betrayal over any of the ethical alternatives available to someone in an unhappy relationship. Trick 3. You changed. Rewriting history to justify present betrayal. This is the "you changed" justification, a manipulation that reframes your personal growth as the cause of her infidelity. She claims you're not the man she fell in love with, turning normal evolution into betrayal and painting her cheating as an emotional reaction, not a choice. It works because change is universal. Everyone evolves, and relationships require adaptation. By labeling your maturity or shifting priorities as intolerable, she makes your natural development the reason she had to seek love elsewhere. Ask what changes she means. Are they destructive, abuse, addiction, or ordinary, being busier, more responsible, less spontaneous? If she treats maturity as betrayal, the issue isn't change, it's entitlement. Note the double standard. Her changes are acceptable, yours justify infidelity. And if she never raised concerns before cheating, the "you changed" story is clearly retroactive, invented after the affair to rationalize it. If her timeline of your change coincides with meeting the affair partner, that's your proof. The justification came after the decision, not before. Even if change made her unhappy, she had ethical options. Communicate, seek help, or leave. Choosing betrayal was still a choice. The right response, separate growth from guilt. Say calmly, "Change doesn't excuse cheating. You chose that." Don't defend or debate whether you changed. That accepts her premise. Failing this test makes you apologize for becoming a fuller version of yourself. Passing it means recognizing that growth isn't betrayal. And her infidelity was never a reaction, only a decision. Trick 4. We were basically over anyway. The retroactive relationship dissolution. This is retroactive rewriting, claiming the relationship was basically over to minimize cheating. By declaring it dead after betraying you, she reframes infidelity as a post-breakup transition instead of a conscious betrayal. It works by exploiting ambiguity. If she convinces you the relationship had already ended in her mind, the moral weight of cheating disappears. Ask what reality looked like then. Were you still living together, being intimate, making plans, acting like a couple? If so, it wasn't over. Her private decision doesn't equal an actual breakup. Notice timing. Did she decide it was over only after meeting someone new? That reveals cause and cover-up, not truth, and if the affair was secret, that alone proves she knew it was wrong. She may still have accepted your support, lived with you, or said, "I love you," while cheating. Clear evidence the relationship was alive. Basically over just means she'd emotionally checked out, but kept benefits until her replacement was secured. The right response: reject retroactive redefinition. Say calmly, "We were still together when you cheated. You don't get to rewrite that." Don't argue about how dead it was. That accepts her framing. Failing this test means letting her rewrite history until betrayal sounds reasonable. Passing means holding the timeline to facts, not her narrative. Trick 5. If you hadn't done X, I wouldn't have. Direct causation manipulation. This is direct cause and effect blame shifting. She says, "If you hadn't ignored me, I wouldn't have cheated." The if-then framing makes her infidelity seem like an automatic reaction to your behavior instead of a conscious choice. By removing her agency, she positions herself as a passive victim of your actions, as if your imperfection triggered her affair like a reflex. The logic sounds reasonable, but collapses under scrutiny. Normal flaws never cause betrayal. Ask what she's blaming: real harm or ordinary relationship strain. Forgetting an anniversary or being stressed isn't justification for infidelity, and she always had options: talk, set boundaries, seek counseling, or leave. Choosing to cheat was still her decision. If her logic only appears when defending cheating, not in other life contexts, it's manipulation, not reasoning. The right response: reject false causation. Say calmly, "My behavior didn't make you cheat. You chose that." Do not debate degrees of fault. That keeps you trapped in her frame. Failing this test means carrying guilt for her decisions and accepting future betrayals as your responsibility. Passing means recognizing that imperfection isn't causation, and no one's choices but hers led to her cheating. Trick 6. Maybe you pushed me into his arms. The ultimate guilt bomb. This manipulation fuses all previous tactics into one: blame reversal. She claims you pushed her to cheat, turning herself from betrayer into victim and you from victim into culprit. The phrase "you pushed me" reframes her choice as your action, implying she had no agency. Accepting that logic means apologizing for her affair. In reality, cheating requires countless individual choices, all hers. The metaphor erases her responsibility and rewrites the story so she's the one wronged. If you challenge it, watch her reaction. Does she admit she chose to cheat, or double down that you made her? Often this appears after all other excuses fail, a last-ditch attempt to escape accountability. If you start believing the story, "I wasn't enough, I caused it," the guilt bomb worked. She's now free of blame while you carry shame and try to fix yourself. The correct response: reject the inversion. Say calmly, "You made that decision. I didn't push you." Do not argue degrees of fault. That keeps you in her frame. Step out entirely. Failing this test traps you in permanent guilt and compliance. Passing means recognizing moral inversion and refusing to accept responsibility for someone else's betrayal.